Hi everyone, I'm glad you're here. You know that feeling, you clean, you sort, you try to stay on top of things, but by the next day, it looks like you didn't do anything at all. You try to declutter, you set aside time, you even feel a bit of momentum, but somehow you end up circling the same mess over and over again. You wonder if it's just your personality, or your schedule, or maybe your home is just too small. But what if the problem isn't your space? It's the way you're approaching it. In today's video, I'm sharing 10 quiet principles that change the way I declutter for good. These aren't trends, hacks, or rigid systems. They're small shifts in how you think, what you focus on, and how you decide what stays and what goes. And they've helped me and so many women I've worked with finally feel like our homes aren't working against us. So, if you've been feeling stuck, tired of starting over, or just want a fresh way to look at your space, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Let's start with tip. You organize everything, but it still feels crowded. You've spent time setting things up. You've bought the cute baskets labeled containers, maybe even followed a few organizing videos online. Your shelves look neat for a while, but somehow even after all that, the space still feels heavy. Like there's too much, like nothing really changed. Here's what helped me shift: don't organize what you don't actually want to keep. Because organizing clutter is still clutter, just tucked away neatly. If you're constantly trying to create space for things you never use, don't love, or don't even like, then it's not helping you. It's just prolonging the problem. So I started small with a drawer in my bathroom. It was full of old hair products. Some were nearly empty, others just didn't work for my hair. But I kept thinking, maybe I'll try them again. Maybe they'll come in handy. But the truth, I only ever used 2 products. Every morning, I had to push past 10 bottles to get to the ones I actually liked. One night, I took everything out and asked myself one question. If I didn't already own this, would I buy it again today? And for most of it, the answer was no. So I let it go. Since then, that drawer's stayed clear. Not because I'm tidier, but because I'm not keeping stuff I don't use anymore. This one shift, letting go before organizing, made every space after that easier to manage. And it made me feel less frustrated almost instantly. If you're curious how I reset an entire space, not just declutter, but clean and organize it in one calm sweep, I'm sharing exactly how I do that in tomorrow's video. It's called the Home Reset Method, and it's a full walkthrough of how I get my home back on track when things feel out of control. So if that sounds helpful, come back tomorrow. I think you'll love it. But first, let's look at the next shift one that stopped me from blaming my family and finally helped me take back some control. Let's move into tip 2. You wait for everything else to settle before you start. You think I'll start decluttering once work calms down, or I need a full weekend or a clean slate. Otherwise, what's the point? It makes sense. When things feel chaotic around you, starting something new, even something simple, can feel pointless. But what I've learned is this: there's rarely a perfect time, but there's always something you can start with. And the best place to begin: start with your own things. Not the shared stuff, not the whole room, just your own items, the things you use, the things you touch every day. I began with my bathroom drawer, not because it was the worst, but because it was mine. Old makeup, expired skincare, hair ties I hadn't used in years. I didn't need anyone else's permission. I didn't need anyone else to help. And when I cleared it out, it didn't just free up space, it gave me a small win. A moment of control. A shift in energy. That feeling of taking back just one corner of your life is powerful, and it builds. Because once you start, you stop waiting for life to settle down. You start choosing to move forward anyway. So the question becomes, where should you start so it feels manageable, not overwhelming? Let's get into that in tip 3. Let's move into tip 3. You don't know where to start, so you don't. You've probably told yourself, I need to do the whole closet, or I should finally deal with that storage room. And just like that, it feels too big. Too heavy, so you do nothing. I've been there. Sometimes the pressure to do it right is exactly what stops us from doing it at all. So here's what I learned to do instead. Start small and start easy. Not the hardest drawer, not the most emotional stuff. Pick something boring, something low stakes. I usually tell people start with the bathroom, a junk drawer, or even just your purse. One day I started with the random stuff in my entryway drawer. It had batteries expired, coupons, keys, I didn't recognize a measuring tape, and I kid you not, a hotel pen from 3 years ago. It took me 10 minutes. And the feeling afterwards disproportionately good. Not because it was life-changing, but because I actually finished something. And when you finish something small, you feel more capable to take on something else. You don't need a full plan, you need one clear, easy win. And once you've had that first win, the next step is figuring out what should belong in that space. That's where we're going in tip 4. Let's move into tip 4. You're not clear what the space is for. You walk into a room and something feels off, not because it's dirty, but because it's doing too many things at once. The kitchen counter has receipts, vitamins, yesterday's mail. The dining table has your laptop and a stack of clean laundry. The bedroom has turned into storage, and even though everything technically has a place, none of it feels right. There's no peace in any one spot because the space has lost its purpose. Here's the shift. Before you declutter a room, decide what you actually want that space to be for right now in your real life. Not what it used to be, not what it should be, just what you need it to be today. When I did this with my bedroom, I had to get really honest with myself. I realized I didn't want it to double as a reading corner, a storage closet, a laundry zone, and a place to charge all my devices. I needed it to feel calm, to help me rest. So anything that didn't support that, books I wasn't reading, clutter on the nightstand, a pile of clean clothes I kept stepping around had to go. Not because I was being extreme, but because I finally knew what I was trying to protect. Once you name the purpose of a space, the clutter becomes easier to spot. And letting things go stops feeling random, it starts to feel aligned. Next, we're going to look at how to make those decisions even simpler by asking better questions about the stuff itself. Let's move into tip 5. You're asking the wrong questions about your stuff. When you declutter, you might find yourself holding an item and thinking, well, I might use this someday, or it wasn't cheap or even. But it still works. And just like that, you talk yourself into keeping it even if it's not serving you anymore. These questions sound reasonable, but they quietly keep you stuck. They focus on guilt-sunk cost or hypothetical futures, not on what your life needs right now. Here's the shift. Ask better questions. Not, does it still work, but do I still choose this? Not, could I maybe use it someday, but am I actually using it now? And my favorite one, if I didn't already own this, would I go out and buy it again today? These questions reframe the decision. They bring you back to the present, to your real habits, your real preferences, your real space. I had to do this with a whole drawer of mugs. I kept telling myself they were perfectly good and someone gave them to me. But the truth was, I always reached for the same 2 mugs every morning. The others just sat there. So I asked myself, if these weren't already here, would I actually go out and buy them? The answer was no. That helped me let them go, not with guilt, but with clarity. Because when you ask clearer questions, you get clearer answers. And the more clarity you build, the less overwhelmed you feel. In the next tip, we'll talk about a part of decluttering that trips a lot of people up. Not what to keep, but what to do with the things you're ready to let go of. Let's move into tip 6. You don't have a plan for where the stuff will go. You finally make a decision to let something go, and then it just sits there, in a bag, in the hallway, in the trunk of your car for 3 weeks. And slowly, that decluttering win starts to feel like one more unfinished task, one more thing hanging over your head. It's not that you changed your mind, it's that you didn't plan for the follow-through. Here's the shift. Don't wait until after you declutter to decide where things will go. Plan that before you start. Set up a donation box in your closet. Pick one local charity you feel good about supporting. Keep a designated Give to Friends basket near the door. You don't need 10 options. You just need a simple path for things to leave your home quickly. One thing that helped me was keeping a sturdy box in the hallway closet labeled Donate This Week. That's it, no overthinking. When it was full, I'd drop it off at the local thrift store I already liked. It removed the friction. I didn't have to stall or rethink every item. The truth is, most people don't get stuck deciding what to get rid of. They get stuck figuring out how to let it go. Make that part easy and everything else gets lighter. And once you stop getting stuck in the out phase, there's one more thing to look at the in phase. That's what we'll talk about next. Let's move into tip 7. You're doing all this work, but still letting new stuff in. Decluttering takes time, energy, and emotional effort. So when you finally clear out a drawer, a closet, or even a whole room, you want that win to last. But what happens next? A sale pops up. A just-in-case item ends up in your cart. A new skincare set arrives in the mail. And slowly, without even realizing it, the space you just cleared starts filling up again. It's not that you failed, it's that the cycle never actually stopped. Here's the shift. At some point, you have to deal with what's coming in, not just what's going out. And that doesn't mean you have to stop shopping completely. It just means you start noticing what triggers the flow and make different choices before the stuff even gets to your home. I gave myself a 24-hour pause rule. If I saw something I wanted online or in a store, I made myself wait a day before buying it. Just 24 hours. And 9 times out of 10, I didn't even want it anymore. Not because it was bad, just because the feeling passed. And that saved me so much money and so much clutter. Because the truth is, you can't declutter your way out of constant accumulation. At some point, you have to break the cycle. Even one small pause can open up a whole new kind of freedom. And when you start noticing those benefits, the space, the time, the calm, that's where real motivation comes in. That's what we'll talk about in tip 8. Let's move into tip 8. You're not noticing the wins. When you think about decluttering, your mind probably goes straight to what you're getting rid of, what you're losing, what you have to give up. And that mindset, it drains you. It makes the process feel like a chore, even when you're doing it for the right reasons. But here's the shift. You have to start noticing what you're gaining, not just what you're letting go of. Every time you feel a small benefit, less stress, a quicker cleanup, a smoother morning, say it out loud, write it down, tell a friend, because those quiet wins are easy to overlook, but they're exactly what make this process worth it. I remember the first time I decluttered my kitchen counter. It didn't look like a big transformation, but the next morning I made my coffee without having to move things around. No shifting mail, no wiping down a cluttered surface. It was just calm. And that small moment stuck with me all day. That's what keeps you going. Not the fantasy of a perfect home, but the real daily relief of living with less. Because the more you notice the good, the more likely you are to keep creating it. And that brings us to tip 9, which is about remembering why you're even doing this in the first place. Let's move into tip 9. You're focused on what you're losing, not what you're making room for. When you're in the middle of decluttering, it's easy to feel like everything is about sacrifice. Letting go, saying no, clearing out things that once had meaning or value. And honestly, that can feel heavy, even discouraging. But here's the shift that kept me going. I stopped focusing on what I was giving up and started paying attention to what I was creating. Decluttering isn't just about getting rid of stuff, it's about building a different kind of life. One that's slower, lighter, more aligned with who you are now. And sometimes you need to remind yourself of that. For me, that reminder was simple. I wanted to wake up and not feel like my day started in chaos. I wanted space to breathe. A home that supported me, not one I had to fight every morning. And once I focused on that, letting go felt less like loss and more like relief. So the next time you're struggling to let something go, ask yourself, what am I making space for? Because your answer to that, not the item in your hand, is what actually matters. In the final tip, we'll talk about what happens when decluttering becomes more than a task, when it starts to shift the way you see everything around you. Let's move into tip 10. You think decluttering ends when the house is tidy. You might feel like there's a finish line a day when everything's finally in its place. Every drawer is sorted and the to-do list is done. But here's the truth. Decluttering isn't a one-time project. It's a shift in how you live, in how you think, in what you believe you need, and what you're finally ready to stop chasing. Here's the real shift. Let the process reshape not just your home, but your mindset. When I started letting go of stuff, I thought I was just clearing space. But over time, it changed how I shopped, how I made decisions, how I reacted to stress. It even changed how I measured enough. I no longer needed as much, not because I was denying myself, but because I had found calm in what I already had. Decluttering isn't about the house. It's about you, your peace, your time, your energy. And when you start seeing it that way, you realize you're not just making your home easier to live in, you're making your life easier to live with. You don't have to change your whole life. You don't need a full weekend or a perfect plan or to feel 100% ready. Just one drawer, one question, one quiet decision to make things lighter, and that's enough to begin. And if even one part of this video made you feel a little more clear, a little more calm, then that's more than enough for today. If this helped, you can tap, like it's a simple way to let me know what actually supports you. And if you're wondering where to start in your own home, tomorrow's video will walk you through 3 key spots that make the biggest difference. It's called the 3 decluttering spots that will transform your home, and I think you'll love how practical and doable it feels. Thanks for being here.